If your surname is on this list, you are not looking at proof of anything about your blood. You are looking at something colder and more specific. A name written into a court register by a notary who was paid to record exactly what a frightened person said in a room with no windows. 13 surnames, 13 bloodlines, and by the end of this video you will know exactly what those registers say, what they cannot say, and why the difference has cost families 400 years of confusion. Stay until number 1, because that name appears in a register in Mexico City alongside a document that should not exist at all, a memoir written inside an Inquisition prison by a man who knew he was going to burn. First, understand what these records actually are, because everything depends on it. The Spanish Inquisition was a court. It generated paper the way all courts do. The fullest records are the complete trial transcripts, verbatim testimony taken down by trial notaries. The Ciudad Real trials of conversos from 1483 onwards survive this way, and they are extraordinary. But most trial transcripts in Spain were destroyed in the upheavals of the 19th and 20th centuries. What survives in bulk is something drier. The relaciones de causas, skeletal formulaic case summaries, sent from every tribunal to the Central Archive in Madrid, from roughly the mid-1500s to the 1700s. Each one gives the accused person's name, occupation, genealogy, where they lived, where they came from, brief notes on the evidence, the confession, whether torture was used, and the sentence. Scholars have registered tens of thousands of them, roughly 40,000 from the case summaries alone, expanded to around 44,000 with supplementary data, 31,000 more from the Portuguese Inquisition. This is one of the largest surviving records of ordinary people's lives in early modern Europe. And here is the thing to hold on to for the next 15 minutes. A register records who was accused, not who was guilty, not who was Jewish, accused. Number 13. Núñez. From the medieval given name Nuño, son of Nuño, one of the plainest patronymics in Castile. It appears in the Inquisition registers repeatedly, in Spain and across the Atlantic. And it appears there for the same reason every other name on this list does, because it was ordinary. When Jews converted, in the pogroms of 1391, and again after the expulsion order of 1492, they took the names of their Catholic godparents and sponsors, the most unremarkable old Christian names available. That was the entire point. A scholar working through the Ciudad Real trial records made the observation that ought to end the surname industry overnight. The names of the conversos do not differ in any relevant respect from the names of everyone else. There was no distinguishing them. If your name is Núñez, your bloodline shares a surname with people who were tried, and with the far greater number of people who did the trying. The next surname belonged to a man whose own trial record contains him arguing theology with his interrogators, in writing, while they were breaking him. Number 12. Lucena. From the town of Lucena in Andalusia, a place with a genuinely remarkable medieval Jewish history. Manuel de Lucena appears in the Mexican Inquisition records, and his trial record is one of the reasons historians know what crypto-Jewish belief actually looked like from the inside. In his testimony he discussed circumcision, argued that it was a salvific practice, and defined it as integral to the faith he was accused of holding. Think about what that document is. A man in a secret prison, describing his own heresy in enough theological detail that 4 centuries later a historian can reconstruct his private religion from it. If your name is Lucena, your bloodline shares a name with a man who explained his own faith to the people who were going to kill him for it. Number 11 is a name that has been sitting on commercial Sephardic surname lists for decades. Here is where those lists come from. Number 11 is from Espina, the thorn, a place name, the place of thorn bushes. You will find it on every list sold online, and the lists trace back to exactly one source, the Inquisition registers themselves. Someone went through the records of the accused, extracted the surnames, and sold the result as a heritage product. Follow the logic. A register of the accused becomes a list of Sephardic surnames, which becomes a document that tells a stranger in Texas or Buenos Aires something about his grandmother. But the register never claimed that. The register claimed a man named Espinosa was denounced. If your name is Espinosa, your bloodline is on a list, and the list means your name was written down by a court, not by a rabbi. Number 10 is the name of a family whose trial produced a genealogy so detailed that historians use it as a primary source. Number 10. Carvajal. From Carvalho, the oak grove. The Carvajal case in Mexico in the 1590s is among the most fully documented converso prosecutions anywhere. And here is what makes it valuable. The registers of the Inquisition sometimes include family relationships and detailed descent from a converso ancestor. The court was building family trees, not out of interest, out of method. Heresy was understood to travel through blood and household, so the tribunal reconstructed lineages to know who else to arrest. The Carvajal trial swept up a family. If your name is Carvajal, your bloodline appears in a genealogy compiled by an institution that was mapping your family in order to destroy it. The next surname illustrates the most abused fact in this entire subject, what the accusations actually were. Number 9. Ginesta, and the names accused of nothing at all. Pedro Ginesta, native of a village in the Diocese of St. Flour, was tried by the Inquisition. The charge, eating bacon on a prohibited day. That is a real case from the published records. Read the offense list of the tribunals, and it is full of this: blasphemy, sorcery, Lutheranism, bigamy, solicitation, saying something stupid in a tavern. The Inquisition was not a machine that hunted only Jews. It was a machine that processed everyone, and Judaizing was one charge among many. If your name is Ginesta, your bloodline was tried by the Holy Office for eating the wrong meat on the wrong Friday, and the register looks exactly the same as the registers people now sell as proof of Jewish descent. Before we continue, if you are finding this useful, subscribe to Origins Decoded. Every week we uncover the history hidden inside surnames, bloodlines, and family names from across the world. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. Number 8 is a name that reveals how accusations were actually generated, and it is the ugliest part of the whole story. Number 8. Duran. From the Latin durans, enduring, lasting. Juan Duran was tried for blasphemy and witchcraft, and this is where the registers turn from tragedy into something more corrosive. Denunciation was the engine. Someone accused you. The Ciudad Real transcripts preserve verbatim testimony from neighbors, and what they document is not theology. It is relationships between conversos and their Christian neighbors, who watched whom, who noticed the chimney was cold on a Saturday, who owed money. If your name is Duran, your bloodline may be in the register because your ancestor was a heretic, or because someone down the street wanted his shop. Number 7 carries a name that appears in the registers of 3 continents, and that geography is the actual story. Number 7. Rodriguez, in the Portuguese spelling, son of Rodrigo. When Spain expelled the Jews in 1492, many went to Portugal, where they were forcibly converted en masse a few years later. Portugal then built its own Inquisition, and its records survive in the Portuguese National Archives, over 31,000 trials added to the scholarly database in 2015. Those families then scattered to Brazil, to Amsterdam, to Mexico, to Peru, to Colombia, and the tribunals followed them. Trial records of Jews from Brazil and Portugal and from Mexico sit on microfilm today, available to anyone. If your name is Rodriguez, your bloodline may be traceable through an archive that spans 4 countries, because the institution chasing your family was better at record-keeping than your family was. Number 6 is a name that shows why, found in the registers, is not the flex the internet thinks it is. Number 6. Perez. Son of Pedro, one of the most common surnames in the Spanish-speaking world. It is in the registers. Of course, it is in the registers. When a court processes tens of thousands of people across 300 years in a population where a handful of patronymics cover a huge share of everyone alive, every common name appears. The presence of Perez in an Inquisition register carries almost exactly as much genealogical information as the presence of Smith in an English court roll. If your name is Perez, your bloodline is in the registers, and so is nearly everyone else's. And anyone selling you that fact as a revelation is selling you arithmetic. Number 5 is the name attached to one of the most horrifying single entries in the archive. Number 5. The wealthy conversos of the Portuguese trials. The records describe a very wealthy and influential converso imprisoned for 5 years, beaten and tortured daily. What the record adds is the part that should be said plainly. The Inquisition understood that a man's family was the instrument by which you break him. Wealth was not protection. Wealth was motive. A convicted heretic's property was confiscated. If your name traces to those trials, your bloodline learned that in this court, being rich was evidence. Number 4 is a name from the New World Registers, and it marks the point where this history becomes American. Number 4. De la Cruz, of the Cross. One of the most Catholic names it is possible to have, which is exactly why converso families took names like it. Atanasio de la Cruz appears in the Mexican Inquisition documents, in a file typical of how these records were physically assembled, once separate documents gathered by a single copyist and registered in order. The Mexican tribunal's records are among the best preserved anywhere, which is why so much of what we know about crypto-Jewish life comes from Mexico rather than Spain. The families hid in the furthest place they could reach. The court came anyway, and it brought a filing system. If your name is de la Cruz, your bloodline may have taken the holiest name available as camouflage and been catalogued under it. Number 3 is one of the great names of the Spanish Church, and its owner was tried by the Inquisition for 17 years. Number 3. Carranza, a Basque name from a valley in Biscay. Archbishop Bartolomé Carranza, Archbishop of Toledo, the highest churchman in Spain, was arrested by the Inquisition and tried from 1559 to 1576. His transcripts are among the most complete that survive. 17 years. The primate of Spain, not a converso, not a secret Jew, a Catholic archbishop whose theology was deemed suspect. If you want to understand what this institution was, understand that it could hold the second most powerful cleric in the Catholic world for 17 years. If your name is Carranza, your bloodline shares a name with the man whose case proves the Inquisition was not a tool aimed at one people. It was a tool aimed at everyone, and it started at the top. Number 2 carries a name that will not be found in any register, and that absence is the most important entry in this entire video. Number 2. The names that are not there. Because here is the arithmetic nobody does. Whatever the true number of converso families in Iberia was, the tens of thousands of trials in the registers represent a fraction of them. Most crypto-Jewish families were never accused, most were never tried, most were never written down. They dissolved into Catholic Spain across 5, 10, 15 generations and left no document at all. This means the registers are not a census of Sephardic descent. They are a record of the unlucky, the denounced, the indebted, the disliked, and the visible. If your name is absent, that tells you nothing about your ancestry. If it is present, it tells you your name existed and someone was accused. That is the whole yield. And now, number 1. This is the name attached to the single most extraordinary document to come out of any Inquisition prison in the Americas. Number 1. Carvajal. Again, Luis de Carvajal the Younger. He was tried in Mexico in the 1590s as part of the sweep of his family. He was a converso who had returned to the faith of his ancestors, and he did not stop. And inside the Inquisition's own custody, awaiting his fate, he wrote. He produced a memoir and religious writings, in tiny script, that were smuggled out, the earliest known Jewish memoir written in the Americas, written by a man in the hands of the court that would execute him. The Inquisition's entire purpose was to make the record, to decide what would be written down and what would be erased. And a prisoner inside its own building wrote his own record, in his own hand, and it survived, and it is in a museum today, and the Inquisition is not. If your name is Carvajal, your bloodline is in the registers because a court put it there, but it is also in a manuscript that a condemned man made sure would outlive the people condemning him, and that one he wrote himself. 13 surnames, 13 entries. 13 corridors leading back through a forced conversion, an expulsion order, a secret prison, a notary's steady hand, 40,000 case summaries in a Madrid archive, and 31,000 more in Lisbon. Your name in an Inquisition register is not proof of your blood. It is proof that a court wrote it down. If you actually want to know where your family came from, the path is not a surname list. It is the trial records themselves, the parish registers, the notarial archives, and the relaciones de causas that name your ancestor's town, his occupation, and his parents. That is real, and it is findable, and it is a great deal more interesting than a list somebody sold you. Drop your surname in the comments and tell me what your family actually kept. The town, the story, the thing your grandmother would not explain. Because those stories deserve to be heard, and unlike a list, they are yours. If you made it to the end of this video, subscribe to Origins Decoded. Every week we go deeper into the history hidden inside the names people carry without knowing what they mean. The next video is already waiting for you.